Thank you.
For your Turkish perspective there and some of the additional challenges that you brought into the field of play there. Arseni, I would like to turn to you now, Mr. Yatsenyuk. Perhaps you'd like to pull together some of these thoughts.
You know, David, for today I serve as the note-taker for the prime ministers and for the minister. You know, what is clear for all of us? That we share the common values. We share the common principles, and we face the same challenges. Three prime ministers and the minister, they showed a very strong leadership. They numbered and listed a lot of problems that are in their countries, and they tried to provide the solutions. Let me steal a part of your job, David, and ask the first question to the prime ministers, to the distinguished prime ministers. What is achievable in every particular country you are running in a 12-month period? What kind of goal, just one goal, that is important for your country, for your nation, and which is doable just in a year?
It's a very clear question. Who would like to be the first minister or prime minister to pick up the baton or the microphone? Saulius.
It's hard to answer. I see our representatives of Lithuania. I'm saying hello to Andrews. When we talk about the need of reforms in Ukraine, we talk about Ukraine moving fast. I can only repeat what we talked yesterday about with the representatives of the administration. Old Europe, old democracy had decades in order to introduce changes. New states such as Lithuania had 10, maybe even less years, fewer years in order to do this, and we managed to introduce these changes very, very quickly. In Ukraine doesn't have such a luxury. You cannot allow yourselves to do it for decades. I know that it's very difficult for you, but we must be even faster than we were. Our government managed this year to launch 6 very important reforms. This is healthcare reform, pension, taxation, and the number of these reforms is extremely important, and we will fulfill them all this year.
I could disappoint you with my answer. This year we'll have parliamentary elections in Moldova. That's why one of our important objectives will be to make sure that the democratic forces in the Republic of Moldova win. But to be serious, in Moldova, we've had so far a society that was very much divided, and it is not in vain that today I have referred to the hybrid threats and to propaganda, because all of these things have impacted and divided the Moldovan society. During the past 2.5 years, we have made an effort, an extraordinary effort, which increased the popularity, enhanced the popularity, and supported the European value. And currently we have an unprecedented score in the Republic of Moldova. That is why the objective that I have set for myself, this is also a personal objective for myself and also for the whole government team, set at the beginning of the mandate, was the following. When we reach the end of our mandate, for the European path of the Republic of Moldova to be irreversible. I believe that we have achieved this goal, and we will see the results this autumn. More than that, the reintegration of the Republic of Moldova is a priority, if not priority number one for us. And we have set for ourselves the following goals, and we have actually achieved a part of them, are the following: to provide comfort to those who live in the Transnistrian region, because they are also our citizens. That is why we have always divided clearly or separated clear between the so-called Transnistrian leaders and the nation living in that region. So even if we are still far from obtaining a special status for this region, taking into account the geopolitical issues, we have managed to settle a number of problems that used to be encountered by people living in this region, such as the schools or the access to their lands or the possibility to continue their education abroad. So now we apostille the diplomas issued by educational institutions from this region, and also we ensured them access to the international road transport, so we provide special numbers to their vehicles, neutral numbers, and also we have ensure the interconnection of landline and mobile telephony. So these are just two of our goals. As I've said, a part of them have been already achieved. Another part of them will have to be achieved by the end of this year.
Have a quick word on this. What concrete, practical achievements in 12 months? They say a week is a long time in politics. You've got 12 months to play with.
Let me give a very short answer. We are civilians, we are all civilians. And our legitimate and our force comes from the nation, our people, democracy. In Turkey, 1.5 years ago, there was an attempted coup. And Turkey overcame this. And in 2017, we finished by 7.4% growth. I'm the Minister of Interior. I'm fighting against terrorism in my country. That's the task that my government gave to me. Last year, we have eliminated 2,500 terrorists only in Turkey. The attempted coup, terror, Syria. Even though we all have these challenges, we are still standing together. And we can only do that with the votes and the support of our people. In 1 year, in 5 years, or in 50 years, and if we are given the option, the whole option should be the rise of democracy. Otherwise, we have no other power. Otherwise, people would play with us just like kids. As soon as the support of people are not there, we will be all on the grounds. That's a reality for all of us, and that's the challenge for... Let me finish by one last sentence. As a person who is fighting against terrorism, I always have an eye on tourism. Because my security parameter is directly related with the numbers of tourism and the increase in the number of tourists. If I can create a secure environment, there will be more tourists. And in 1 year, I'm always hoping that my tourist numbers will exceed 40 million.
Да, дякую. Особливо дякую Арсенію Петровичу за це запитання.
I would like to thank Arseny Yatsenyuk for this question. I believe that the next 365 days will be very difficult, but they would not be as difficult as the years of his tenure in the Cabinet of Ministers. So we have lived 4 times by 12 months under very difficult and dire conditions in this country. But in the context of security, I can imagine that surviving for 12 months in the occupied territory, in the situation with no opportunities, with no rights, is a difficult time. And I believe that these people require our support. 2014 and 2015, in the country of 45 million people, which is Ukraine, had only 108,000 hryvnias, about $10,000 on its treasury accounts. And with the war in Crimea and in the east, in Donbass, we faced huge challenges. I don't know if any other nation in the recent history has ever survived and faced such challenges. And we continued transformations inside the country. One can criticize us, one can support us, but our economy was falling for 2 years, and within 1 day, our traditional markets were severed. Our cooperation with the historic strategic partner was severed, and it impacted our economic model dramatically because of that aggression. So we are still reeling from this blow. It was a true disaster in terms of energy security because we were extremely dependent on power supplies from Russia. And I will comment on Nord Stream 2, if I may. Those who say that it's about economy rather than the policy or politics, please look at our relations with Russia. We were extremely dependent on Russian gas for decades. And Russia was the monopolistic supplier of gas and other power supplies to Ukraine. We actually were like drug takers dependent on that gas. But when it came to the dilemma whether you choose energy supplies or power supplies or you're independent, we voted for the latter. So as for 2016, we started to grow, and we continued to grow in 2017. Within the next 12 months, I hope to achieve a situation whereby we will have more than 5% of economic growth, and we will convert it into success and into better living conditions and living standards for Ukrainians. We've started very fundamental reforms here. We've started to reform almost every sphere of life in this country. Those who don't believe that these are reforms, I wouldn't agree with you. It's the total overhaul of the country, not from scratch, but from the destroyed and distorted system. So we started the budget reform, the public procurement reform, corporate governance reform, energy reform, pension reform, security reform, judicial reform, national police reform, to name but a few. Under the conditions of war, just that's what we feel every day. We have to address all of these challenges at the same time, simultaneously. But it opens up new opportunities for building new health system, new education system, new pension system, which would be fair to everyone, and it will ensure the sustainability of democracy and sustainable improvement of living standards for Ukrainians. That's the top priority of our policy, irrespective of whether you are in power or in the opposition. The overall success of the country is what brings us together.
You wanted to get back in, Arseny, but we've heard a lot about democracy. We're up against the clock. It's important that we remain democratic here. So I said that there would be questions, an opportunity. I will take one or two questions now. If you want to put your hand up, if you have a question. Or if coffee is just more important, that's perhaps understandable at this stage. I think that, we have a spoiler over here. We have one question, yes, from the gentleman over there. If we could just get the microphone to him. Who has the microphone? I think you might have to. Where's the microphone? Here it comes. It's coming.
My name is Maxim Kiyak from Kiev. I will ask my question in Ukrainian, if you don't mind. First of all, I will say, першу чергу я скажу, Христос воскрес.
I will have to start with the following. Christ has risen. I've perused the program very carefully, and I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. But when we speak about security, we should also have in mind environmental situation. In the very near future, politicians will be assessed against their attitude to the environment, I believe. So my question also concerns Moldova as well as Ukraine, and it is very topical in Western Ukraine. It's about a cascade of HPPs at upper straits of the Dniester River. It might lead to very dangerous environmental consequences, and the Dniester Canyon can disappear altogether. I recently went to that region and I studied the situation. So I studied the situation on the ground, and I believe that the prospects are very dangerous and alarming. So my question is as follows. Is our energy security such an issue that we could endanger this natural reserve area? Thank you for your question. So your question was so popular that I have to answer first. Christ has risen indeed. It's good that you've mentioned environmental security here. So when it comes to security, it's not about ratings of the politicians or popularity rates. So I can sacrifice my ratings if our security would hinge on that. The preservation of our natural resources and of our environment is a top priority to our cabinet, and we are answerable for the better environment to our children and grandchildren. Later today, you will have a panel with the ministers of Ukraine, and the environmental minister of Ukraine, Ostap Semerak, will be speaking there. So energy security cannot be gain priority over environmental security. We never see it as a dilemma. We should take both into consideration, and we will be using best international practices just to preserve our environment and ensure security, including environmental one.
I would like to thank you for this question as well, and I would like to ensure you that everything related to the development of the ecosystem of the Dniester River basin is a key issue in our bilateral discussions that we have with our Ukrainian colleagues. Last year, maybe you've noticed, we had lots of meetings and the discussions were very consistent. And I can tell you that I can tell you about the progresses that we've made. Last year, Ukraine ratified the Rome Agreement. On the basis of this agreement, a joint group was established, 19 members from Ukraine and 19 from Moldova. And this group will make a study, will prepare a study, will assess the situation in the basin of the Dniester River and will monitor the situation there. So this covers also the 6 plans that are that are stipulated in the Energy Development Plan of Ukraine. So nothing can start unless we have this assessment, this impact assessment ready. Regarding the hydro energy node on Dnestrovsk, this is also part of our discussions. We are very close to finding a solution because we have a very serious approach and we discuss in details all the issues when we speak about the delimitation of the border. That's a whole commitment. It's part of the package, for example, recognition of the properties and also the regulation on the operation of this node so that it does not impact the ecosystem of the Dniester River. Moreover, together with Prime Minister Groisman, we signed a joint letter to the European Commission asking for support to assess the environmental situation along the whole length of the Dniester River. So we are very responsible. We understand very well that Dniester River is a joint wealth belonging both to Ukraine and Moldova. Moreover, it represents the main source for drinking water for the capital of the Republic of Moldova and also for Odessa in Ukraine. That is why our attitude and our responsibility is shared and is the same on behalf of Moldova and Ukraine. So nothing can justify any measure that might impact negatively the environment. That's why we are very responsible. We understand that this wealth that we have needs to be conveyed to our children and the children of our children, and maybe the form will be even better than we have inherited.
To stop it there, I'm afraid. There is another question there. A high-powered start, I think, to our forum from our high-level guests. It is opportunity for coffee now. You'll have 20 minutes, and then we will have a special address from the chairman of the Verkhovna Rada, Andrei Parubi, joining us here. But before you go, I'm sure you'll agree with me that we owe a big debt of thanks to our high-level guests for opening our forum in such a strong way. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen. Thank you.